All right, I'll say, how are you all this evening of your time as you create time to exist? Are you all alive?
Yes.
Thank you very much. We begin this interaction this evening of your time with the entitlement, the naming. Allow us, before we begin, to speak for a moment about one particular idea. Although, and we have discussed this before with members of your society, you are all 100% consciousness. One of the expressions of that 100% totality in your particular society is the idea of breaking down, seemingly, artificially, your consciousness into what you consider to be segments. For the purposes of this brief discussion, we will mostly be involved with the idea you label conscious and unconscious. There are other names, subconscious, and various, shall we say, different definitions for what these all mean, but for the purposes of this discussion, we are simply referring to conscious awareness, that which you believe is on the surface, so to speak, of your consciousness, and unconscious awareness, which is what you deem to be, shall we say, separate from your surface consciousness, from the typical you define yourself to be, but yet you feel it's still in there, in that sense. First of all, understand that it is quite simple to take information, shall we say, that you have, so to speak, stored in the unconscious and make it conscious. The idea is once it is focused upon by your conscious awareness, it is, by definition, now a conscious idea. First, however, let us proceed with the following definition, one that we have shared before. Unconscious knowingness. Unconscious knowingness is, from our perspective, the same as conscious unknowingness. Now, what this means is, though you consider on the one hand that unconscious knowingness is information to which you do not directly have access, the idea is the balanced equation is that you may also consider it to be conscious unknowingness. And what this means is that you are choosing at this time to not know a particular idea on the surface. Now, the purpose for the redefinition is that now plugs into the formula that you are exercising choice. And this means you can always now begin to make other choices. One, shall we say, semantic definition places it out of your grasp. The other being conscious unknowingness and therefore a choice gives you the opportunity again to begin to allow what needs to, when it needs to become conscious. Now, we have spoke about, again, this many times, and there are many ways with which you can begin to allow yourself to integrate your unconsciousness to your consciousness, thereby being a living, working, if you will, playing expression of one whole consciousness. And the simple idea is as follows. When something occurs in your life that you simply feel at that moment, perhaps from your old perspective, does not belong. When you label it extraneous, everything fits in my life, but this does not belong here. That is your strongest opportunity, that particular idea to take something which is quote unquote unconscious and make it conscious. Not by defining it as extraneous, because when you do not give yourself the opportunity or the eyes, so to speak, to see why you created it. Very often, or most often, shall we say, the things in your life which are unpreferential and seem extraneous are the products of your unconscious creatorhood. For, as we have also shared, you always create your own reality 100%, but you do so consciously and unconsciously. What this is leading to is the things that very often individuals will say, well, I could almost believe that I create my own reality, except I would never create that. That thing is what we are speaking of as an opportunity. For perhaps you did not create that consciously, but create it you did. And your labeling of it as extraneous can now draw your attention to the fact that that particular idea is an opportunity to transform it from the unconscious to the conscious. Therefore, take for granted, if you wish, you do not have to, that everything that you have formerly labeled extraneous has a reason. And when you will simply take this for granted, you will then give yourself at least some, shall we say, vision, some type of eye to begin to at least look at what that might be. Whenever you see something that on the surface you immediately label negative and not belonging, that particular idea is a prime opportunity for you to begin to realize that because you have created it, you have done so for a reason, and begin to look what that reason may be. Very often, it will simply be an opportunity to define within yourself what you must still believe in order to have created it. And those beliefs that would result in an unpreferential creation are in general unconsciously formulated and in general not the beliefs that will enable you to create your life according to preference. In other words, they are limiting beliefs. When you take a belief that you have held unconsciously and make it conscious, that is owning a belief. This is what always allows you to change any belief. First, owning it, and it is the ones that you wish you did not have that are the ones that when you own them and change them will make the biggest difference in your life. Therefore, all your liabilities, as you say, can now be viewed as your greatest assets by simply utilizing them in any way, shape, or form that allows you to glean anything that is positive about them. That is taking unconscious and allowing it to be conscious. Once you own that belief, you can still keep it. Nothing is lost. Nothing is taken from you. But you at least then have the option consciously to decide whether you prefer to keep it or whether you prefer to transform it to something that will then perhaps allow you to do the things you say you wish to do. Enough said. This ties into, shall we say, the naming, because what is occurring is the idea of an idea that is within the unconsciousness of the channel being brought to the conscious awareness. As we have shared, what is before you in this interaction is a blended energy. One aspect or facet of that energy is an individual you would label Bashar. And this is the designation and the referential name that we have used till now. There is another energy within the blending of this interaction, which is also another male individual from the same planet, that I come from, Bashar, comes from Esasani. That is the name of the planet. And that will be, shall we say, the main individual that will communicate through this channel beginning in the January of your next year. For now, for specific reasons, I, Bashar, will remain for the next few weeks more actively engaged and involved in these interactions. But then again, in the first of your year will recede entirely. As we have also shared, individuals upon our planet are telepathic. We have no names per se and simply recognize the signature vibration, the, shall we say, soul-to-soul identification between each individual and simply have no names, vocalized representations of these identifications. We simply know literally an individual for who and what they are, for their relationships of ideas to us and to the whole of our society. However, upon your planet, you do have language and you do have names to enable you in that sense to interact with each other until you begin to unfold and develop your telepathic abilities, which bit by bit is occurring. Therefore, my Bashar's name is not really Bashar, but upon your planet, that will do. The time has now come to, in that sense, provide a reference for the other individual in these interactions that we have simply labeled the other. And the timing is no accident. The name that has been co-chosen unconsciously on the part of the channel, quite consciously from our perspective, is an interesting idea in and of itself, for it is, shall we say, one of the few words common to your language, shall we say more than one of the languages upon your planet, and common to a word in our ancient language. Because before we were telepathic, we did have a representational language. Therefore, the name we are about to provide is, shall we say, a common word, so to speak. We will, for the purposes of identification upon your planet, use your spelling. Therefore, allow us to now proceed and share with you the name of the other entity for your purposes, for your convenience. And that name is Elan. E-L-A-N. What we can share from our perspective is that that name in your language means many things. We will allow you to look it up so you can have some fun at home. But the idea is that we will share that one of the meanings is eagerness for action, spirit. Coincidentally, it is also a word that relates to the heritage of the channel. And in that particular language means tree. We will get into that at another time. Lastly, before we begin to interact with you, allow us to also share the meaning of that particular reference as it applies to our remnant language, in which it would translate as one that represents the whole. In a sense, you can say, though it is, shall we say, more of a synonym than an actual definition, a hologram. Therefore, from this point forward, we simply request for the purposes of accuracy that these interactions again until your January 1992 year being labeled from this point forward, and in fact, you can say retroactively to the session labeled thank you, as Bashar / Elan. Still kept my name in the front. But the idea is it will be out of there altogether quite soon. Therefore, allow us now to thank you. When, in that sense, you are interacting with us at this timing, you may use either reference. It does not matter. It will still be, as a whole, a blended energy. The last few introductory statements to these interactions have more or less solely been rendered by Elan. This particular interaction, this particular introduction is quite an equal co-creation of the both. Allow us to thank you for your willingness to continue to co-create these interactions with us. We understand that this provides a service to your society, but never forget that it as well provides a service to us. For it allows us to relish the many different ways, the many expressions of all that is throughout the multiverse. What you consider upon your planet to be a repetitive question, oh, there goes that question again, from our perspective is always anew. And we are never tired or bored and never get the sense that you are not getting it, for there is nothing from our perspective that you need get. You already contain it all. And we are simply a reflective surface for you to see the light, the brilliance of your own center. Therefore, allow us now to proceed to the equal interaction. And again, thank you and express our unconditional love and appreciation for your willingness to participate in these interactions. Shedding. At this timing, allow us again to express our unconditional love and appreciation for your willingness to, amongst other things, take your unconscious knowingness and make it conscious. As you do, you literally integrate yourself. One simple idea that we have shared is that you are always 100% beings. Even if you use 90% of your great power to make it seem as though you're only using 10%, that is still the 100% utilization of your power. You are doing it. Simply begin to establish what it is that excites you to begin with. And then when you will begin to move in that direction, just as you have gotten the results of your actions up till now, your results will change according to preference. When you are the being you prefer to be within integrity, then you get the reality that such a being would have. Your imagination is the key. Though it has been relegated to merely fantasy, that simply shows you how much you can get into it. It is as well a tool. If you will simply picture the you truly prefer to be and give it life in the screen of your imagination. And whenever something comes along and you don't like the way you're handling it, hand it over to the imaginary you. See what they would do and do that instead. You will be that you, and you will get the result of being that you. And you will take your unconscious creations, allow them to serve you, and when any symbol delivers its message, it transforms, and there will simply be no more unpreferential, unconscious results. And you can walk, if you wish, according to preference all of the time. When we say that, if you say, no way, Jose, perhaps you have nailed down a belief that you may prefer to look at. Balance can be maintained many ways. You do not need to balance half your happiness with half misery so you can be whole. You can express all the happiness. And in that sense, allow the negativity or the seeming negativity to simply transform. Again, as you expand, you will become aware of more of everything. But you only need experience. Choose and take the gifts that are positive. When you walk the positive path for long enough, since you can only get the reality you are the vibration of, even physically around you, the negatives will seem to disappear. And then, you will show yourself the new evidence for the new belief, just as you have allowed yourself to use the old evidence for the old belief. Remember, you can live the reality that seeing is believing and constantly reinforce the things that you don't prefer by gathering evidence. See that? I knew it. I knew it couldn't be right. Knew it couldn't be happy. See that? Or you can understand that just as well, believing is seeing, and simply refuse to interpret anything as being evidence that your path is not working. That is only one interpretation of that evidence. Look around that evidence. Look on all sides from all angles. And you may just find hiding back there the reason you created it in service. You will find it if you look. Therefore, we thank you for sharing the naming with us this evening of your time. And we bid you a most fond and loving pleasant dreams.